Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're joining us from today. Welcome to today's IMS Community webcast. Before I hand you off to Yuri for the session itself, just a couple of things I need to cover. First, a few questions along the way, and we always hope that you do. Please use the questions box located under the GoToWebinar control panel. Just type them in there, and we'll hold those until the end, and we'll get through as many as we can together. If for some reason we don't finish all of them, if we run out of time, or if something requires some research, I'll make sure Yuri gets everything that he needs to follow up with you later. Your lines are all muted, and that's because we're recording the session today. The replay will be available out in the IMS Tools community probably sometime later today, or worst case, tomorrow morning. And the last thing for me is that we always want to make sure these sessions are valuable and helpful for you. So with that in mind, a short survey is going to pop up on the screen after I close it. We would love to get a little bit of feedback on today's webcast. That's it for me. Take it away, Yuri.
Okay. Hello, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Jiří Vandas, and today I have this presentation about updating the database or program view schemas, basically in managed ACBs environments. Here is just a quick disclaimer that here I'm presenting the things which are known until now, and probably could change in the future and such. Okay, here is just kind of my summary. I work as a software architect here in Czech Republic for Broadcom in Prague, in the capital city. I'm working for the IMS and DB2 tools for 14 years. I used to in CA Technologies and nowadays in a Broadcom company. I work as a software engineer and an architect nowadays. Also working the customer cases, and also I was working in a product management, basically as a product owner, together with the customers and defining the features and such. So this is it about me. Here we can see the agenda for today's presentation. Basically, the first is just kind of little bit overview of about the environment we are going to use today. It's going to be only the presentation kind of session, no live session, but still, we need to get a little bit familiar again about the environment we've been using here. The first part of the presentation will be given to the population utility from IBM DFS3PU00. Then the second part will be dedicated to the new way how to introduce the databases, schemas and programs through the DDL, through the SQL. And then I've put as a small last part of the presentation the import command, which is kind of necessary, let's say, or very important part for some of the utilities and the ways how they are running. Okay, so this presentation is actually a little bit of continuation of my kind of multiple presentations where I've been introducing or presenting basically how you can introduce the IMS catalog and directory in your IMS environment, how to create it, initialize it, how to allocate the data set and such. Now, basically during this presentation, I've kind of realized that if you would like to create some new databases and modify them, for example, then it's for the whole other presentation, and there are kind of many ways how, or several ways how to do it. For the form of this presentation, I've picked that we go from, let's say, the simpler and kind of batch, sometimes a little bit like static, old way utilities, and we will progress more towards the more dynamic, let's say, changes. And actually, at the end, I've tried to summarize that and express that in one kind of overall comparison tables, which is the thing I'm kind of where I'm heading to. Here is just kind of rough description of the environment I was also working with, and where I was as well trying and playing it. Actually, the slide is or could be familiar to you because I used this environment as well for the previous presentation. So basically, we have two IMS systems with the shared databases and also shared IMS catalog and IMS directory. This is, let's say, probably one of the simpler schema. Didn't really want to complicate it with some other things. And it's let's say full CSL system. So all the SCIs and operations managers and the resource repository servers are up, and I think it's a pretty nice and hopefully common environment as well on your shops. Okay, so here comes the first part of the presentation, which is the batch update population utility. First is why would you use this population utility when you have such a fancy thing like, for example, the DDL? The answer is that it's pretty easy for use. If you don't really want to invest a lot in some certain scenarios, it could still be handy and useful just to do some one-time or even sometimes the repetitive database updates in a schema. There are options which are still quite handy and still provides you the high benefit. As well, it's easier for the configuration. For example, you don't need the IMS Connect and ODBM, which for some DDLs are necessary. And if you have, for example, even then just a pure, let's say, offline environment without, let's say, online region running, then probably it's the only one option you have to implement the IMS catalog and then later on work with that. Here is the basic JCL, which for this utility is being used. Here you can see that we are running the particle program, the DFS3PU00. Note that you have to put it in the PGM statement for the exec as well, instead of usually the main IMS control region controller. And then the parm corresponds to the standard parm, which is used for the DLI batch region. So starts with the DLI, then the program you're running. Then in highlighted green color, you can see the PSB, which is used, which will be important later on. Then we have yes for the DBRC and no for IRLM. And then at the end, you can see the DFSDF suffix for the same name, DFSDF ProClib configuration member. Then there are some common, let's say, libraries, the steplib and reslib, pointing to the load library. Then IMSDD is there just to specify the old DBD libraries and PSB libraries, mainly for the GSAM databases when importing. For the normal ones, you don't really need it because the utility works with the ACB members. The ACB members are specified in the IMS ACB, and then here we have a 0, 1, but there can be multiple DDs, 0, 2, 3, and as long as the numbering is continuing without interruption, the utility is dynamically reading these files. And then one of the important is the proclib definition for your DFSDF configuration member. And then what could be handy are the recons, because I kind of recommend that you should register your catalog in the recon, and together with the catalog probably use the recon. It's simpler, let's say, at least for the configuration. Then the last DD is the sys-inp, which is used for the control statements for the utility itself. And we will see several options you can specify there and switch the mode, let's say, of the utility. Here you can see more or less the summary of what we've just went through, the DDs. Here are the control statements. You can put it there. The managed ACBs option, it has 3 values: setup, update, and stage, and we will talk about them in the next slides. Then additionally, you can put there the DUP list or ISRT insert list, which simply prints some additional messages when some duplicate entries you are trying to override some existing resources, the databases or programs in your catalog directories, or if you are inserting the fresh new ones, then simply they are being reported as what happened basically during the process. The error max allows you to set up what's the maximum number of the errors, and when this counter reaches or is reached, then the utility terminates. And then the checkpoint frequencies are defining how many resources in terms of the databases or program views are inserted between the checkpoints are taken, or how many segments are inserted between checkpoints are taken, segments into the IMS catalog database. Okay, so here is the first usage of the utility with the simplest option, which is the managed ACBs equals to setup. This option allows you to do the initial load of your IMS catalog and directory. If you've seen the previous presentations, I've been using it already. It allows you as well to automatically allocate the catalog and directory data sets on their own on the disk. It's very easy to use, mainly, for example, to even during the import, you can easily, repeatedly run it to fine tune or to validate that, or let's say until you will resolve all your troubles with importing your ACB members. It processes the ACB members from the IMS ACB DDs, and it requires or to have the what happened? Why? Oh, okay. And the utility requires to have the ACB lib in ACB management in the DFSDF member to be set up. So basically, the configuration proclib member is set up that the reading of the definitions is from the ACB libraries. This utility cannot be run as a BMP. It runs as a DLI batch job, and it requires the exclusive access to the IMS catalog database and also to IMS directory. So if the catalog and directory are being used by IMS system, then simply you have to take your IMSs down. Then this utility has as well one kind of flavor. Yeah, this utility updates the resources on the active directory. So, or in the directory itself, the other updates doesn't go to the stage directories. There are two modes how to run this, and the modes are being switched by PSB you use. The first PSB is the DFS CPL00, which is used for the initial load. And then it has the option to run, let's say, in the update mode, where you have to use the DFS CP001 PSB name. Here we can see the JCL, which you can use to do the update, and yeah, and that's it. The second utility, second option, let's say, is the managed ACBs equals to update control statement. This again updates the active instances directly in the catalog and IMS directory. It also, compared with the previous one, reads the members, input members from the ACB libraries. But now the first difference is that from the proclib, it reads the or it requires the ACB management equals to catalog setting in the DFSDF member, which is the member you are using in the online system, for example, which is already using the IMS catalog. That's one thing. The other thing is that now this utility already somehow allows you to do the filtering and selection and better kind of manipulation of which resources will be updated. There are options for the latest and unconned. So if you use the latest option, then the ACB members have a timestamp, and the directory is updated only when the ACB timestamp is higher than the timestamp which is already for that resource in the directory itself. The unconned behaves like the previous utility and unconditionally overrides the directory anyway. With IMS catalog, it's much easier because the IMS catalog instances are always added, because the catalog can handle or store multiple instances, and just one of the primary identification is the timestamp. So in a catalog, yeah, the required instance can be easily found. And as a PSB, now from this point actually is used always the updating one, the DFS CP001. And here is the JCL, which compared with the previous one looks exactly like the same, just really the input is a different, the sysin is different. The last third option for this population utility is managed ACBs equals to stage. Now this utility allows that you just update your resources, and they are stored in the catalog and especially in the directory in a staging level. So the active directory is untouched. This is meant for really kind of truly online operation. And so the active directory is still being used by online IMS system while you are preparing the updated definition on the staging level. This then needs the import def and source catalog command, which turns the resources prepared on the staging level to the active one, but of course on your command and at the right time. This option runs now with the as well ACB management equals to catalog, so you can easily reuse the configuration member for the online IMS system, for example. And from this time, this utility can run either in the DLI mode, like the previous ones, or it could be executed as a BMP as well, which in my opinion is much better item, because if you don't have really now, if you are expecting, for example, some errors and it can happen that the utility fails, then it leaves the resources somehow in a rollback pending state, and you have to roll back all those things, and then BMP it's much more easier. So yeah, it's done rather automatically by IMS. So that's better option, I think. As well, this utility has the capability of putting there or changing that only the resources with the newer timestamps should be updated. So the latest and cont options are present, like for the previous option update. Here is the JCL. You can notice that now it's again in a parm statement, it's a BMP. Then of course you don't really specify anything about the DBRCs and recons, just the IMS ID. Yeah, I think that probably I've read the recon definition DDs here. Yeah, probably you can omit them. But still, the input to this processing is the ACB libraries and ACB members you got from the ACB gen. That's it, actually. These were 3 or kind of 4 options how you can import the ACB members into your catalog. And now we can take a look at the newer version through the DDL, through the SQL. So as an introduction, the IMS already for multiple releases supported the DML, which is the SQL which allows you to just select, insert, update, and delete the rows in the tables, basically the data in your databases. Now with the directory, you have an option to issue the DDL to create the database and alter the tables, for example. And the new terms comes with that. That's a database. Well, that remains the same, but this is comparable to the DBD. And there's a new program view, which is comparable to the PSB. Again, this DDL compared with the, let's say, DB2 approach, in this IMS world only kind of replaces the DBD and PSB and ACB gen process. You still have to do on your own the DBRC registrations. In some cases, let's say dataset allocations, or rather there is some kind of dataset allocation support for the DDBs, but usually you have to do it on your own. And of course, if you're using some DFS members for dynamic allocations, or yeah, it's again up to you. And as well, for example, registration of IMS resources, unless you have the DRD. Yeah, probably we will see it a little bit after that. The first utility I wanted to show you is it's called ZDDL. It's a pretty fresh new utility, which came with IMS 15.3. And this utility allows you to issue the DDL statements, the create statements, for example, from the mainframe batch job. And it allows you to put them on the staging level with some conditions on as well into the Active Directory level, but probably the staging is the target. The utility executes as a BMP job, and as a side note, it doesn't require still the IMS Connect or ODBM region, which is some kind of good thing. It's still quite easy to get it running. It provides you some, let's say, control statements. The first one is verbose for the verbose kind of output printing, so you can have better overview what's happening in the tool. Then the second one, auto commit, is simply when everything is okay, then do really the commit of my changes. And the third one is the simulate, which is even overriding the auto commit, which basically says don't harden my changes, just verify that the syntax of my SQLs are correct and everything, let's say, matches to the current setup of the catalog, like validating the DBDs and PSBs, and then that all the blocks could be properly built still. Then there is a dynamic program view option, which something like allows to override the auto import command from the DFSDF ProClient member from the catalog session, which is something a little bit newer thing. And this simply allows you to push the things automatically from staging to Active Directory. So just kind of mentioning here, if for example, your configuration contains that and you might be wondering why the Active Directory is already updated, why the changes are not finishing on the staging, this could be because of that. Here is the JCL, pretty simple, where you can run the ZDDL. Again, here you can see it running as a batch, a BMP job. The utility is executed, the DFS3 ID 00. The updating standard PSB for the IMS catalog is used for that. And then again, just specifying the IMS system, where to run it. Here in the sys INID, you have the options I've mentioned on the previous slide, the auto commit, for example. And in the IMS SQL, you can put your statements you would like to use. So here, just some or two, basically create one database and then a table within it. But yeah, still enough. Here I've put the output from the utility I've been running. Here you can see on top the options which are used, and here you can see the every statements I've used, and as well that they were checked and everything went okay. There is actually, oh, yeah, okay. And then on the bottom, basically you see the required catalog or updates, I think, which happened, or what is the result of all those the statements. That's it for the ZDDL. And as let's say the last way of updating your catalog and directories through the DDL, I'd like to mention that basically you can use the JDBC connection, which is the Java database connectivity. This is probably the highest kind of option from the availability point of view. You can connect to your mainframe system through the TCP/IP. Of course, this requires already the IMS Connect and ODBM region setup. But then through the JDBC driver, you can just connect from whatever user-written application in your Java, or you can use some existing, for example, IMS Explorer console, or any other database console. What I just the IntelliJ DB Navigator. Just try that because use it just to verify it really works, and it does. For this one, you have just two, let's say, requirements or two things you have to do. Obviously, we are now out of the mainframe world. So first, you need to obtain the JDBC driver. You can get it from the installation datasets. Here is the one which is the ADFSJ HFS dataset. There is the database JDBC driver you can download and use, and of course you will have to register it in your IDE simply. Or if you, for example, recently I figured out if you use the IMS Explorer, this comes with the drivers during the installation. So that's the first part. The second one is then you just have to set up your JDBC connection string, which is pretty simple. It's just the JDBC column IMS column, and then you specify the host name, IP address, or just some domain name, and then column port number, which you specified in your IMS Connect installation or configuration rather, and then the PSB name, which PSB you would like to use for the connections. Then you can follow up with the options, but that's optional. Interesting. I'm sorry, just don't know why I'm being kicked out from full screen. Then the options, probably the most used are the user and password if you are running probably some your own application, but if you are using you are using the Explorer or other console, there are separate usually fields where you put in your credentials. The other options could be like current schema, which is basically which PCB from the named PSB should be used during your queries. And there are some other options for tracing, for example, or here the LL field is that always for the variable length segments, the column with length of the data will be presented or appended dynamically and such. If you are using, for example, IMS Explorer for development, this helps you. There is a dialog, helps you with the setup of this connection string, and it helps you to identify all the necessary pieces, and then it assembles them all together. For my other console, I just have to come up with the whole string and put it there as a one field. And then actually it's really about just proper clicking. Like here, this is the screenshot from the IMS Explorer. So on the left, you can define your connections to the systems and set up the connection string, and then you can use your SQLs, for example. The nice thing here is that compared with the previous utilities, here you can mix as well the DMLs and the DDLs, for example. So you have just one utility to try it out. And here is the other console I used. Again, the similar approach, like set up your connections in some navigator and then issue the SQL and see the results. So this is it for the DDLs, basically the two ways how you can use it and execute it. And now there is a quick look on the import catalog command, because in cases when your resources are updated on the staging level, you have to get them to the active ones, and you need this command to do it. This command is a type 2 command. It doesn't have the type 1 equivalent. So basically you need the whole CSL environment for that, all those CSI regions and operation manager for this. It allows you to specify a particle or filter by name the particle resources you would like to move from the staging to the active one using the name option. And then there are, let's say, 3 large options, at least for the description, which are the no check, update PSB, and refresh PSB, where the update PSB and refresh PSBs are used for notifying the systems in a Plex, which know that PSBs first which PSB should be moved to the active one, and which should be actually refreshed online on the IMS systems when the new PSBs are, for example, scheduled. That's the refresh PSB. The no check is used when you are changing only the DBDs without affecting the PSBs, so there is not really checked the exact match between the DBD and PSB when you are importing the PSBs. Actually, there is one case when this import command is not necessary. If you are using the DDL create, and in your proclip in the DFSDF member, you have the auto create equals to yes, and auto import equals to create, then the resources are automatically moved to the from staging to the active level. That's one case. And actually this settings has another positive thing, that if you have system set up for the dynamic resource definition, the DRD, for the new items, it also registers the new resources, the new program for the program views, and the database for the database resource for the kind of the DBD. So then it's much easier to introduce the database for this one. Yeah, there are some still, of course, in this DFSDF member, some other options, but yeah, it's for maybe even the next kind of presentation, especially about the DDBs and the allocations of the data sets and such. Okay, we are heading to the end of the presentation. Here on this, actually one of last slide, I wanted to give a summary of all the ways which I try to describe today, how you can update the schemas. Here, as you are going through the table, actually from top to bottom and a little bit from left to right, you can see that there are the utilities which has still the old way, the ACB members as the input. Then at some point of time, it switches to the DDL possibilities. Then in the ACB management, you can see again the point where it switches between the configuration of your, let's say, IMS environment through the DFSDF member, when the IMS is using still as well the ACB libraries, but you're already working with the catalog, and then the point where the IMS system is switched to the catalog, and you have to use from that point particular utilities. And as well, if we go again right to execution reader region, sorry, you can see how your kind of updates are being applied, whether in a DLI, which means basically offline catalog typically needs to be exclusive to the updating utility, through the BMP to more online system. And then here you can see again how what's the basically output, whether the active directory is still updated or whether rather the staging directory is updated, what supports really the high availability. So this is kind of somehow overview and mapping all the decisions which you could probably decide and take in account, and hopefully pick the best utility for your case. And that's it. Thank you for your attention, and I hope to see you sometimes in the future on some next webcast. Thank you.
Thanks, Yuri. I'm looking in the questions box. We don't have any questions yet. Folks, if you do have questions, please put them in the questions box. And I'll also remind you about our post-event survey that's going to pop up here when I close the webcast. There's an opportunity to ask questions there as well. And you can also, as always, ask questions out in the IMS Tools community. Just wait a couple more seconds to give folks a chance to type if they are. All right, I don't see anything coming in, so we can go ahead and wrap up. Yuri, thank you very much. And to everyone who joined us today, we really appreciate your time as well. Happy Monday and have a great week.
Thank you. Have a good day as well.